The night came with no warning, folding Mara into a darkness that felt more like a shroud than a simple absence of light. Her breathing was shallow, ragged, as if the very air had thickened, pressing against her lungs like a heavy veil. In the depths of her nightmare, her limbs began to stiffen, the sensation creeping up her arms and legs with a terrifying slowness. Her skin felt cool and unyielding, and she knew without doubt that she was turning to wax. The nightmare was vivid, every detail etched in the suffocating silence that clung to her mind. She struggled for breath, the room around her freezing into an eternal stillness. Shadows lengthening and stretching into grotesque shapes that mocked her helplessness. When Mara finally jolted awake, drenched in cold sweat, the oppressive quiet of her apartment seemed to echo the nightmare's lingering terror. She sat on the edge of her bed, heart pounding, trying to shake the sensation of being trapped beneath an invisible weight. The wax museum was no longer just a place. It was a presence, seeping into her thoughts, blurring the edges of reality until she could no longer trust what she saw. Days passed in a haze of restless pacing and obsessive examination. Mara spread her photographs across her small kitchen table, each image a frozen moment of eerie perfection. The wax figure's eyes, glossy and unblinking, seemed to flicker with a life of their own. Whenever she looked away and then glanced back, their gazes appeared to shift, following her movements with an unnerving sentience. The uncanny valley was no longer a concept, but a prison she inhabited. Every sound was muffled, every breath felt labored, as if the stillness had infiltrated the very air around her. Simon arrived one afternoon, concern etched across his face as he stepped cautiously into the cramped apartment filled with scattered notes and photographs. He found Mara pacing, her movements jittery and erratic, her eyes wide and haunted. "Mara, you need to rest," he urged gently, but she shook her head, voice trembling. "It's not just the museum anymore. It's everywhere. The silence, the stillness, it's suffocating. Sometimes I feel like I'm already trapped, like I'm turning to wax." She paused, her breath catching. "I don't know how much longer I can fight this." Simon reached out, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "We'll find a way. Lydia's information, the research, it's not over yet. You're not alone in this." But even as he spoke, the doubt in his voice betrayed the growing weight of their predicament. The curse, it seemed, was more than a physical trap. It was a psychological prison, tightening its grip with every passing hour. Late that night, Mara's phone vibrated softly on the bedside table. Lydia's voice was a whisper, trembling with urgency and fear. "Mara, listen to me," she said. "The wax isn't confined to the museum anymore. It's spreading, reaching beyond those walls. You have to be careful. If it gets inside your mind, it won't just freeze, you would claim you." The line went dead, leaving Mara alone with the echo of those chilling words. The boundaries between wax and flesh, between life and stillness, were dissolving. The horror beneath the wax was not contained. It was coming for her. Mara's world had contracted into a suffocating cage, where shadows moved just beyond sight and silence screamed in her ears. The uncanny valley deepened around her, each breath a struggle, each moment a battle against the encroaching coldness. She was trapped, not just by the wax, but by the terror it wrought, an unyielding dread that threatened to consume her very soul. And as the darkness pressed closer, she knew the fight was far from over. Somewhere beneath the surface, beneath the wax and the stillness, the true horror waited, patient and eternal. The line between reality and nightmare blurred with every tick of the clock. Mara's mind churned with fragmented memories, half-formed fears, and the inescapable sensation of being watched by unseen eyes. The wax figures haunted her waking hours, their silent gazes penetrating deeper than any spoken word. She reached for her camera one last time, trembling fingers framing the lens to capture what she feared most, the undeniable truth that she was slipping away, becoming part of the stillness she so desperately sought to escape. But in the darkest moments, a flicker of defiance sparked within her. She would not succumb without a fight. The uncanny valley may have deepened, and the suffocation may have tightened its grasp, but Mara Ellison was still breathing, still searching, still resisting the eternal silence beneath the wax. And somewhere in the depths of that suffocating nightmare, hope clung stubbornly to life. The brittle air inside the shattered waxen gallery clung to Mara like a suffocating shroud. Each breath a laborious effort beneath the weight of silence and shadow. The ruin that once held the town's most macabre attraction now lay fractured and hollow. Yet the oppressive stillness remained, a palpable reminder that the darkness was not yet undone. Mara's eyes traced the cracked surfaces of the wax figures, their forms frozen in grotesque postures, faces twisted with the faintest echoes of pain and longing. The unnatural lifelessness, once so maddeningly deceptive, now felt like a living entity, watching, waiting. Her fingers clenched the straps of her bag, heart hammering against ribs that felt too fragile for the terror they bore. Footsteps echoed suddenly, startling in the emptiness. Simon peered through a broken archway, his breath ragged, his eyes gleaming with urgency and exhaustion. Clutched in his hands was an ancient tome, bound in cracked leather and inscribed with symbols Mara barely dared to decipher. "I found something," he panted, stepping closer, "something that might finally give us a way to end this for good." Mara nodded, swallowing the lump of dread lodged in her throat. "Show me." They gathered beneath the skeletal remains of a shattered chandelier, the flickering candlelight casting long, trembling shadows that danced against the crumbling walls. Lydia, pale and trembling, joined them, her hands shaking as she held a folded piece of parchment, worn with age and secrets. "There's a legend," Lydia whispered, voice barely above the cold wind that seeped through the broken windows. "About Elias Voss's soul, how it's tethered to the wax, bound in a circle of eternal stillness. They say if you break the circle, the curse can be undone. But the price," her voice faltered, eyes wide with terror, "the price is steep." Mara's gaze hardened, the weight of the past, of the vanished visitors, and of her lost brother pressed down, but beneath it all burned a fierce resolve. She would not let the darkness consume her, not yet, not without a fight. "We face it," she said quietly, "because if we don't, no one else will." Simon opened the tome, revealing cryptic passages and diagrams of arcane symbols, circles of binding, waxen seals, and incantations that twisted the fabric of reality itself. The words seemed to hum with a dark energy, the air thickening as if the gallery itself responded to their presence. Together they prepared, each movement deliberate and trembling, as the suffocating dread wrapped tighter, gnawing at their sanity. Mara's mind raced with memories of the eerie stillness, the shifting faces, and that final, terrible moment when she nearly became part of the macabre collection. Outside, the first hints of dawn crept over the horizon, fragile and pale against the oppressive night. Inside, Mara steadied her breath, feeling the cruel irony that this fight was far from over, that beneath the wax there was still a darkness clawing to remain. As the candle's flame flickered low, she whispered a vow into the silence. She would face the darkness, no matter what it demanded, because some horrors, no matter how suffocating, must be confronted to reclaim even the faintest hope of freedom. And in the gathering gloom, Mara braced herself for whatever nightmare awaited beyond the veil of stillness. The shadows lengthened. The wax seemed to breathe. The darkness was watching. And Mara was ready. The thin line between what was real and what was conjured by exhaustion and grief blurred steadily for Mara as she sat alone in the muted light of her apartment. Around her, the walls were crowded with images, photographs of the wax figures, close-ups of their glassy eyes, notes scrawled hastily on paper, and the edges of a faded photograph of her brother, whose absence echoed louder each day. The silence was suffocating, pressing like the wax itself, all-encompassing and smothering. She traced the worn edges of the picture with a trembling finger, her breath catching as the weight of loss settled around her like a shroud. Her nights were worse. They folded into one another, a kaleidoscope of fractured dreams and waking nightmares. In one recurring vision, she found herself wandering the endless hallways of the waxing gallery. But the corridors were no longer static. They shifted and breathed, the walls pulsing with a faint, unnatural rhythm. Faces emerged from the wax, their eyes glassy and unblinking, whispering words just beyond comprehension. The air was thick with stillness, yet alive with an oppressive presence. Mara's heart pounded, her limbs heavy with dread, as if the very fabric of time was stretching and crushing her simultaneously. The fear of being frozen forever, trapped in a silent tableau, seized her with every step. The boundary between what was living flesh and what was hardened wax grew impossibly thin. Simon's voice was the tether that kept her from completely unraveling. They met one afternoon in a crowded cafe, the noise and warmth a stark contrast to the cold silence Mara had been drowning in. His glasses caught the light as he leaned forward, concern etched into his features. "Mara, you need to take a step back. This obsession, it's destroying you. We can find another way together." But Mara's eyes burned with a haunted intensity. "You don't understand," she whispered, her voice brittle. "If I don't get this, if I don't find the truth, they'll be lost forever, just like my brother." Simon's hands clenched into fists on the table, torn between anger and empathy. "I'm scared for you. This isn't just about the museum anymore. It's eating you alive." The tension between them hung heavy, a fragile thread stretched taut by fear and love. Late at night, Mara found herself drawn back to the ruins of the waxen gallery. The collapse had left jagged shadows and splintered stone, but in the crumbled remains, the echo of the curator's presence lingered. She reached out, touching a cracked wax hand half buried in the rubble. The cold hardness beneath her fingertips sent a shiver through her, but it was more than cold stone or wax. It was a touch of the past, of souls trapped in eternal stillness. Memories flooded her mind, the vanished visitors, the curator's tragic obsession with capturing life forever, and the suffocating silence that had swallowed the museum whole. She felt the weight of loss settle deep in her chest, mingling with a fragile resolve. The horror beneath the wax was not just a thing of the museum. It had become a part of her. Mara's journey had brought her to the edge of a precipice, where reality and nightmare intertwined. The obsession that had once been her weapon against forgetting was now a prison of its own making. Yet even in that tenuous place, a spark of clarity remained, a hope that by embracing the darkness, she might find a way to finally break free. As the night deepened, she closed her eyes and let the silence envelop her, listening to the faint echo of whispers beneath the wax, knowing that some boundaries, once crossed, could never be fully repaired. The story was far from over. The thin boundary that separated artifice from reality, life from frozen death, was a fragile veil, and Mara was about to discover just how easily it could tear apart. The silence was a living thing. Mara felt it coil around her ribs like smoke, thick and suffocating, every breath a battle against the invisible pressure pressing her inward. Her apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a crypt. The flickering candlelight cast monstrous shadows on the peeling wallpaper, each movement of flame twisting the darkness into shapes that seemed to leer and reach. She sat, curled on the threadbare rug, knees drawn close, hands trembling as she stared at the wavering light. The night stretched endlessly, the stillness oppressive, unyielding. Her mind wandered back to the waxen gallery, to the cold, unblinking eyes of the figures that had haunted her dreams. Those statues, they weren't mere wax and pigments, she realized with a shudder. They were prisons, vessels of frozen souls, trapped in eternal silence. The memory of the curator's gaunt face, his obsidian eyes like voids swallowing light, lingered like a spectre in the corners of her thoughts. A soft knock at the door startled her, sharp in the quiet. Simon stepped inside, his breath a gust of cold air scented faintly of rain. He carried a bundle of old, dust-coated books and a battered notebook filled with scribbled notes and faded photographs. "Thought you might need these," he said quietly, his voice a low anchor in the storm of her mind. Mara managed a weak smile, the first in days. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice fragile but grateful. They sat together at the small kitchen table, the lamplight casting warm pools of glow on the yellowed pages. Simon's steady presence was a balm, grounding her as they pored over the history of the town, the occult practices, and the cursed legacy that had shadowed the waxen gallery. But even amidst the comfort, Mara felt the silence creeping back. It was in the spaces between words, the pauses laden with unspoken fears. She spoke of her dreams, the endless corridors where the wax figures followed, their faces morphing into those of the missing, their glassy eyes voids of sorrow and warning. Simon listened, his brow furrowed, the weight of her words settling heavily between them. That night, Mara's dreams twisted into a nightmare. She wandered the labyrinth of the waxen gallery once more. The walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like the chest of some great slumbering beast. Shadows curled like smoke tendrils around her feet, and the wax figures stirred, their statuesque stillness breaking into subtle, terrifying movements. Their eyes gleamed with a terrible awareness, cold and unblinking. She tried to scream, but no sound emerged. The silence was absolute, a suffocating void that swallowed her whole. Awakening with a start, Mara gasped, heart pounding against her ribs as if trying to break free. The dawn light seeped weakly through the curtains, pale and uncertain. She sat on the edge of her bed, hands clenched into fists, the echo of the dream still thick in her veins. It was a reminder, no matter how far she fled, the darkness beneath the wax followed. It was not just a place, but a presence, a resonance of silence that had taken root inside her. Days passed, each marked by the same struggle, the oppressive stillness that threatened to consume her from within, the memories twisting like barbs at the edges of her sanity. Simon's visits became lifelines, brief respites from the encroaching shadows. They talked openly now about the curse, the ritual, the souls freed but not wholly released. The knowledge that the darkness might linger was a heavy burden, but it also gave Mara a fragile thread of hope. One evening, as the city's hum softened into night, Mara stood by her apartment window. Outside, the town moved on, oblivious to the horrors she had faced. The morning light would soon break, promising a new day, yet inside her, the shadow remained a silent, unyielding echo of all that had transpired beneath the wax. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, willing herself to hold onto the tentative thread of resolve. The horror was not over, but neither was she broken. The silence beneath the wax was a part of her now, but it would not define the rest of her story. She would carry its memory a chilling resonance of loss and suffocation, but she would also carry the strength to face whatever came next. Outside, the first birds began their morning song, fragile notes piercing the lingering darkness. Mara opened her eyes, a faint, determined light kindling within them. The waxen gallery was gone, but the shadows it cast would follow her forever. Still, she would not be swallowed by the silence, not yet. The stillness was a presence, a shadow, a memory etched deep beneath the surface. Yet beneath that, Mara found the faintest pulse of life, fragile, trembling, but unmistakably real. And in that pulse, she found the beginning of her fight to reclaim herself from the resonance of silence. The first pale fingers of dawn stretched across the horizon, spilling a muted light over the blackened bones of the waxen gallery. Mara Ellison stood silent amidst the ruin, the charred remnants of what had once been an eerie sanctuary of frozen figures now reduced to ash and twisted metal. A bitter wind whispered through the skeletal remains, carrying with it a haunting echo of voices long silenced, a ghostly murmur that clung to the ruins like a shroud. She inhaled deeply, the air sharp and cold, tasting faintly of smoke and decay. The silence that enveloped the scene was profound yet unbearable, a suffocating void that seemed to press against her chest as tangibly as the oppressive atmosphere she had escaped days before. Mara's eyes traced the shattered wax figures scattered like fallen giants. Their once lifelike forms, now grotesque and distorted. Yet beneath the ruin, beneath the shattered shells, she could feel the lingering presence. The darkness that had dwelled beneath the wax was not so easily vanquished. Simon Hale approached quietly, his familiar steady presence a thin thread of grounding in the swirling tempest of Mara's thoughts. "It's over," he said softly, though the uncertainty in his voice betrayed him. "Over." Mara echoed, her gaze fixed on a fragment of wax that eerily resembled a face she had seen countless times before. "I don't think it ever really ends. Not for me, not for any of us." The journey back to her small apartment was a blur, the outside world seeming unreal, as if she was still trapped between the layers of nightmare and reality. Once inside, she sank into the chair behind her desk, where dozens of photographs of the wax figures and frantic notes lay scattered in disarray. Her fingers trembled as they hovered over the keyboard, the half-finished article mocking her from the screen. The words refused to come. The memory of suffocating stillness, the uncanny movements of wax and shadow, the curator's cold obsidian eyes all converged into a storm that clouded her mind. Night descended quickly, and Mara found herself pacing the cramped apartment, the pale glow of the street lamp outside casting long, twitching shadows across the walls. The silence was absolute but fraught with menace. Every creak of the building, every distant sound felt amplified, a whisper of the museum's lingering curse. Her breath hitched as the faintest murmur brushed against her ears, an indistinct voice that stirred a cold dread deep within her. She paused, pressed her hands against her temples, fighting the rising tide of paranoia. The darkness that had once lived beneath the wax was no longer tethered to the museum's walls. It had seeped into her, a shadowy stain upon her soul. Mara knew she could never fully escape it. The suffocating stillness had become part of her existence, a permanent echo beneath the surface of her thoughts. Sinking back into her chair, Mara closed her eyes. The weight on her chest was real, a crushing presence that pressed down with relentless force. It was as though the trapped souls she had freed had left behind a residue of their torment, an invisible tether binding her to the horror she had witnessed. Yet within that crushing despair, A flicker of defiance remained. She would endure. She had to. Her fingers found the keyboard at last, typing slowly, each word a small act of rebellion against the silence that sought to consume her. The story of the waxen gallery that vanished, the curator, the cursed wax would live on, not as a whisper in the dark, but as a testament to the horrors beneath the surface, to the price of frozen stillness and the terror of being trapped in time. But as dawn gave way to day, Mara knew one truth above all: the darkness beneath the wax was eternal. It had marked her, reshaped her, and would haunt her forever. The waxen gallery was gone, but its shadow lingered, a suffocating presence that would never release its hold. And somewhere, deep inside, Mara wondered, was she still truly free? Or merely another figure trapped beneath the wax, frozen in a nightmare that refused to end? The room grew colder, the silence thickening like a living thing. Mara's breath quickened. Somewhere beyond the edge of perception, the faintest whisper stirred once more, a soft but chilling reminder that beneath the wax, beneath the stillness, the darkness waited. Always, her story was finished, but the terror was not. The suffocating silence beneath the wax had become her companion, a shadow she could neither escape nor deny. And as the first light of day filtered through the window, Mara Ellison, survivor and witness, embraced the unrelenting dread that would haunt her every waking moment. Because beneath the wax, the darkness never truly dies.